in BPO, it's going to end up being literally chatting, physically chatting, talking to a chatbot as opposed to a human person. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly. We think that will very likely happen in the coming years, if it hasn't already. In fact, anecdotal evidence suggests that BPO call centers in the Philippines are already shedding jobs. And let's not forget that the Philippines is already facing very stiff competition from the likes of India, South Africa, and Poland for this sorts of job. Now, what you want in the AI age are the kinds of jobs that are classified as high exposure but high complementarity, which is the kind of job that AI is less likely to replace. We're talking about people like judges and surgeons because, very simply, society is just probably going to be unwilling to entrust the kind of decisions that these people make to AI. And unfortunately, the problem in the Philippines is that there aren't that many. These kinds of jobs make up a rather small proportion of the economy. And as JP just mentioned, about 8% of GDP comes from BPO. So we have a situation in the Philippines where the basic fundamental economic growth strategy might be invalidated by greater and more widespread AI adoption.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Darren, let's do a compare-contrast here, because on the flip side, you guys identify that Singapore is highly exposed to this, but also highly complementary, actually. Can you compare and contrast why AI might actually be more beneficial to a country like Singapore and perhaps detrimental to a country like the Philippines?
Right. So there are a few dimensions here, but just look at the breakdown of the workforce in Singapore, for example. Yes, it is true, 30% of the workforce are in jobs that we classify as low complementarity and therefore at high risk of being replaced. But at the same time, 30% of the workforce, and that's by far the highest in Asia, are in jobs that we consider high complementarity, and these are typically concentrated in the financial sector. So Singapore, yes, is at risk of disruption from AI, but it is also very well placed in terms of its workforce to exploit AI-driven productivity gains. Now, if you look at the Philippines, you have a quarter of workers that are in low complementarity jobs, and only 10% of workers that are in high complementarity jobs. So not only does that, from the outset, mean that the Philippines is less likely to be able to exploit AI-driven productivity gains, but the fact that this imbalance of pros and cons means that politically it might be a hard sell for the Philippines to adopt AI on a wide scale in the first place.
And based on your conversations with players and stakeholders in the Philippines, do you get a sense that perhaps they're aware of this possible risk and there's a move to at least plan for the possible risks that AI poses to not just this industry, but other industries across the Philippines that might also be in the firing line?
As far as my conversations with our clients who might be affected by this go, so far there's not been, at least as far as I can see, a very well-formed or well-informed strategy to respond to these things. And if that continues to be the case, then the BPO sector unfortunately may not be able to meet the ambitious target that you mentioned earlier, that by 2028 that it will account for about 10% of GDP. Right.